Hey, what's up, guys? It's Apollo Uchiha here, back with a new series. The name of this series is What If Naruto Had a Dinosaur as a Pet? And before continuing this, if you haven't, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you like the content of this channel. And without further ado, let's begin our new series. Before continuing this story, I just wanted to get this clear. This is a story by S.L.N. And yeah, just wanted to shout out the original creator. And without further ado, let's begin. The first word out of a tiny 8-year-old Naruto's mouth when he wandered into the Hokage's office to tell him about his day were, "I want a ninja animal. It would be so cool. I'm taking really good care of those plants you gave me. They're still alive and happy and stuff. So, can I? Can I?" Hiruzen chuckled, quickly jolting down a note for the research division. A shinobi had found an egg of some sort, and he could trust his Zanbu to request it. He just make sure that Naruto could be trusted with it. Animals require a lot of care. You know that, right? And ninja animals need a lot of training as well. It can be patience testing, you know? Naruto nodded solemnly, like waiting for the fruit to turn ripe, right? Or pretty flowers to bloom, right? Hiruzen chuckled, walking beside Naruto as they walked to the child's apartment. Sure, like that, but a bit more, like waiting for it to ripen. Then it goes green again, or the flower curls back up. Naruto thought about it. That is so annoying, but waiting is important. The nice lady at the flower shop said flowers have to be just right if they wanna sell them. Inoichi's wife, a nice lass, would take and talk about flowers with anyone, including the cubist Jinchuriki apparently. It was good. He knew Naruto gave the Yamanaka flower shop his flowers when they were blooming, as Inoichi had come in to make sure it was okay. They were chakra plants that Naruto was growing after all, better for shinobi to grow, less inclined to die when a shinobi went on a mission. They were hardy little plants and known for storing extra water in underground reserves. They could take in a lot of water in a short amount of time, and their level of reservoirs were signaled by the color of the leaves. In addition, they were chakra plants, so they can use chakra instead of fertilizers, and thus were slightly cheaper to keep. Civilians couldn't really channel chakra, so they couldn't keep chakra plants in their houses. Hiruzen smiled as they walked into Naruto's apartment and flowers buds waiting for him. They aren't blooming yet, but they will be in another day or two, Naruto said proudly, gently curling one of the buds and channeling chakra into it. They were hardy plants. That was true, but they only bloomed with proper care. To have this many bloom, it signaled the plants trusted him to take their flowers. They were a breed of plants made by Hashirama Senju, and a good section of people, though they were just slightly sentient, if only because they were prone to produce more flowers when being taken care of by people they liked. The flowers could reabsorb blooms in just under 3 days and were prone to showing their dislike to a certain people. Hiruzen personally knew that chakra plants had liked Minato, but weren't too fond of most Uchihas. Obito had been a happy counter to that one, as had Shisui, who grew team and ended up with the many blooms. As a whole, "You've done well," Hiruzen praised gently, touching one of the buds. "What color are the blooms?" Naruto screwed up his face, then grinned and ran out into the room. That was his bedroom. He came back out a minute later with a book. He opened it, flipping a couple of pages before settling on one and handing it to Hiruzen. "See, Gigi, this nice lady at the flower shop told me and how to press flowers." Hiruzen stared down at the vivid red flower, short thought with bright white and a touch of blue at the center. A not commonly known chakra tester was chakra plants, as they took a long time to bloom, but they were fairly accurate. The red was the cubist chakra, of course, with a fire affinity. Naruto's chakra, the white and touch of blue, signaled his primary wind affinity and minor water affinity. "They are very beautiful, Naruto." Naruto grinned. Some are just red and some are just white, but most of them look like that. Hiruzen nodded, and almost signaled to him that the egg had been placed in his office, and he smiled. One of my shinobis found an odd egg. If you'd like to try hatching it. He didn't get any further as Naruto lashed onto him in a hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, Gigi, he said, detaching and bouncing slightly. If you can take good care of it, we'll see about getting you a nicer cat or dog so you can have a proper ninja animal. Naruto nodded quickly. Okay, but I can keep the thingy in the egg too, right? Of course, Naruto, of course, he reassured Naruto. Naruto beamed at him and Hiruzen decided that this was certainly the right choice. He could always switch Hatake from Jonin Sensei to watch him at the egg, whatever it was, for a bite. Not only likely he passed any teams anyway. Come, let's go to my office. It's there. And then we can get the right stuff for it, right? Naruto nodded enthusiastically, and he and Hiruzen walked back to Hokage Tower. The egg hatched 3 weeks later, beginning to hatch just as Naruto was headed out of Fort Academy. He debating whether to stay with the egg, but ultimately just grabbed it from the incubator and hurried to school, while it cradled carefully in his arms. The other students were very surprised to see him with the egg, especially when he pulled a towel out of his backpack and settled the egg on it. He then settled down in his seat and rested his chin on his hands, staring at the egg. What's that, dope? Sasuke asked, vocalizing the question the entire class had. Iruka had been warned that at some point Naruto would bring a small creature to class, but he wouldn't have thought it would be hatching in his class. Oh, I don't know, Naruto replied distractedly, gently picking the egg up and rotating it in his hands to find the place where the creature was going to come out. Well, we'll see when it finished hatching. He got a lot of strange looks from that one, and Sasuke actually sat down next to him, curious beyond measures. Shino quiet, but didn't glare at him, sat on his other side, watching the egg curiously. Naruto tried paying attention to Hiruka he really did, but the man had quickly realized that the entire class would be distracted to no end by the egg, and just taught a lesson they already had. He knew when he wasn't going to get anything from the kids. The first crack appeared in the egg about 20 minutes into class, and eager children crowded around Naruto at the egg. Iruka gave up teaching and used his superior height to see over the children. A piece chipped away, and a bloody red eye stared at Naruto. He stared right back, glaring blue eye staring into the red ones. The eye blinked, and the tiny creature resumed its struggling. The rest of the egg fell away, revealing a small creature about the size of a chicken, for now, standing bent over, with a tail swinging behind it, and smaller arms like appendages, with a nice set of claws. The weed had larger claws as well, and a tiny mouth as full of sharp teeth as well. Naruto pulled a container out of his bag and opened it and offered it to the tiny creature. It examined the contents. Half of it was assorted greens. The other half was a variety of raw and cooked meat. The creature went straight for the raw meat, wolfing it down with a happy chirp. With the half meat gone, it chirped at Naruto, rubbing its head against his finger. The class blinked. So, what is it? Sakura asked. Iruka frowned. I believe it's a creature called Raptor. They suddenly and supposedly went extinct millions of years ago, though. We found a few bones, but the shinobi nations are rather oblivious to them. We only know what a few are called because our missions that we sent on were outside of the elemental nations. Naruto put the container aside and started patting the tiny Raptor. Are they intelligent? Iruka shrugged. I just remember. What's it called? You have to ask for a book on dinosaurs. We only have a couple, though. Naruto nodded, tapping the tiny Raptor on the nose. It sneezed adorably. If I hadn't just seen it wolf down raw meat, I would be cooing at it. Ino decided. The eating raw meat wins over the adorableness of what just happened. Shino watched the creature curiously, feeling his gaze on it. He turned to him and chirped. Shino tilted his head slightly, and the creature tilted its head too. "Do you eat bugs?" he asked it. The Volside raptor seemed a bit confused, so Shino allowed one of his Kikachu bugs to climb onto his finger and showed it to the creature. It looked at the bug with such revulsion and shook its head. Shino took that as a no and allowed the bug to crawl back into his sleeve. Naruto rubbed its little head. "Those bugs are off limits. They belong to people, okay?" The Velociraptor raptor chirped and torted over the rub against Shino's jacket. How do you sex a reptile?" "You put them in with another reptile. I'm pretty sure they do all the work." Sasuke deadpan. "No, sexing something means finding out the gender or sex of the animal," Ruka explained. "Perhaps ask Hokage-sama." Naruto nodded, giggling a bit as the Velociraptor thoroughly rubbed its head all over what parts of Shino's jacket it could. "I think it likes you." Shino stared at the creature. "I believe you are correct." "Taron." "Huh?" the class asked as one. "Taron. It's a name, or maybe Taroko if it's a female." "Alright, now that it hatched," Ruka trailed off as the Velociraptor appeared to finish with Shino, hopped on to Naruto's head, and jumped onto Sasuke, sitting down on his head. "Really? You like the theme more?" Naruto said incredulously. It chirped at him, getting more comfortable on Sasuke's head. Naruto gave it a very unimpressed look. Link break. When the egg hatched, Hiruzen had not been actually expecting a dinosaur of all the things, long thought to be myths and were definitely extinct. He debated calling Anko in to see if she could sex the animal, but decided against it. That would probably be a bad idea considering the amount of the teeth the creature had. Not a problem for worrying about Anko, more about worrying that Anko would take a shine to that small creature and hence to Naruto. As much as he trusted the special Jonin, he was a bit eccentric. He checked himself and tentatively suggested it may be female, but they should probably ask a vet before he took that as an ironclad fact. As such, they were on their way to visit Inuzuka's. Hana Inuzuka specifically. She was young but showing a good head of veterinary medicine. Also, she was most likely not going to deny Naruto and his Velociraptor a checkup. In addition, she was an Inuzuka and not even remotely afraid of things with sharp teeth. She also probably had some more meat for the Velociraptor, who was hungry again and had already eaten what Naruto had. On the plus side, they knew what it ate now. Hana checked it over and agreed that it was probably a female, so the Velociraptor was officially named Taroko. Naruto continued bringing Taroko to school with him. She was happy enough to sit quietly, for the most part anyway, and had mostly figured out the lunchtime meant she could pester Naruto for food all she wanted. Ruka was deemed okay, but Taroko didn't seem to like it when he threw chalk at Naruto for sleeping. So a few days into him bringing her, she started nipping his ears whenever he was close to dozing off. Ruka was fine with this arrangement and even started keeping mice from whenever they appeared in the school, which was often in his desk to give to her when she's done a good job keeping Naruto awake. She was certainly more intelligent than most of the other animals, and about a month after she hatched, Ruka brought up the subject of communicating with her. "Naruto," Ruka stopped him after class while feeding one of his mice to Taroko. "Yes, Ruka-sensei? Have you ever thought about teaching Taroko Morse code?" Naruto looked confused. "Morse code? It's a sound and occasionally touch-based communication method." Iruka slipped into his lecture mode immediately. "It relies on a series of dots and dashes. Or long and short, Morse code can be used over radio by tapping on someone and even flashing with a jutsu." "So, the point is," Naruto said, leaving it hanging, "she could tap her claw to speak in it, and you could reply by clicking your tongue. Or maybe even reply verbally if she can understand Japanese." Taroko at the moment decided to chitter and nod her head. Ruka smiled and patted her head. "I think she agrees with me. Maybe. I'll take a look at it." Naruto agreed. And take a look at it he did. He had to learn it first. Then, as he learned, he taught it to Taroko. It was an interesting way to learn, and he found he remembered it better when he taught it to her. And then they used it. He started mostly simple commands: don't bite, doing bite, and disappear. The last one was used mainly when civilian mobs found him. She wasn't big enough yet, only about the size of a small Lincoln, and he feared they would attack her, or maybe even worse, kill her. Uruka used it to get her to snip Shikamaru whenever he was sleeping too, and Naruto started wondering if she liked his teacher more than she liked him. Shino had picked up on the Morse code thing and started learning it as well, attempting to have conversation with a small reptile. She was learning new words daily from him and then would teach them to Naruto. It was with some difficulty they figured out how to do the information transfer, but they found that she could dip her claws in ink and draw like that. So Shino and Naruto started teaching her to write and read as well. With some strong encouragement from Tarko, Iruka started giving her assessment and assignments too, letting her complete them in her own slide better than chicken scratch hand or claw writing. Tarko made her opinion on certain people very clear. She did insist that she liked the Uchiha, mostly because he smelled of blood, or something like that. She wasn't very clear. She didn't like the fangirls of the class, usually growling at them, especially when she caught something on her own lunch, and her fangs were all very bloody. They were usually screaming and running away at that, despite that fact that she only came up to about their knees by the end of the fourth year and was not big enough to eat them yet. She liked Shino. Shikamaru was a top up. They weren't sure if she just liked biting him and getting the treats from Uruka or she actually cared that he was paying attention. She hadn't said anything on that subject, so they were mostly left in the dark. She definitely liked Choji, who was fine with bringing some meat leftovers from whatever food he eaten recently and giving them to her. So far, she was especially fond of the turkey Choji's mother made. Tenoichi and Ayame were deemed okay after they got over the teeth away. Anyways, they happily fed Tarako all the extra scraps that would have gone into trash whenever Naruto brought her along, which was most of the time. They were remarkably well adjusted to shinobi life, despite being civilians. It was probably the fact that their stand had been a place of fond memories for many shinobis, including the Yellow Flash and his wife, plus his students. The two had proven time and again that they keep their mouths shut, vital for people who ran establishments that shinobi frequently visit. Tarako seemed to like Hinata. It's just because she wasn't a squealing fangirl. Akamaru was terrified of the large volatile raptor and Kiba remained wary, keeping his distant. Mizuki was not on her good side either. She mentioned something about not liking snakes and him smelling bad. Mizuki was confused by that, so everyone just brushed it off. By the end of the 5th year, Sakura was on firmly Taroko's bad side. Naruto didn't think Sakura's ever switched side. Ino was edging towards neutral, and Taroko was roughly up to Naruto's ribs. At her shoulders anyway. 6th year was certainly the most interesting since she hatched, since they discovered she could use chakra. Taroko watched them attempting the leaf exercise curiously and tapped out a question. Chakra, can I use? Naruto blinked. I'll ask. Hey, Iruka-sensei. What is it, Naruto? Iruka asked, coming over. Can animals use chakra? Taroko asked it. Iruka asked, amused. Yeah, so can she? Iruka thought about it. Well, I don't see why not, but I just don't know. Why don't you try, Taroko? Taroko tilted her head, crouching down to place her head on the leaves, carpeting where they were working. There was a reason they taught this exercise in the fall. She stood back up, and most of the leaves, except for one, fluttered to the ground. Did you get it to stick? Iruka asked. Taroko tapped out a response. Leaf stuck with chakra. Manipulation easy. Iruka blinked. Okay. May I place leaves on other parts of your body to see if you can hold them as well? Taroko nodded. The leaf under her chin not moving, signaling it was certainly struck firmly with chakra. Iruka took care, placing leaves on her side and a few on her tail, which swished a few times after they were placed, making sure they were firmly stuck. The other students gasped at a dinosaur that was doing better than they were. Admittedly, it was less surprising and more, oh come on, we thought the dinosaurs couldn't do shit. Iruka had informed the class in an attempt to get them to work harder that if she was an actual student, Tarko would be a top of class, even above Sasuke, who was top human student. It had sort of worked in that way. A lot of the students tried harder, especially Sakura, who was livid that she was being beaten in her academic score by a freaking dinosaur. She was still being beaten. Iruka had decided to set up 3 scoreboards on the class. One that had academic scores, one with physical scores, and the third one with overall scores. Tarko was topping all 3 consistently, although the scores with individual things that lay to the side admitted that Naruto had a better stamina than her. Really, it was not by a lot. She wasn't beating Sasuke at Kuna and Shuriken throwing, mostly because she couldn't actually throw anything. But she had the claws to make up for the new taijutsu. As she was a dinosaur, taijutsu style didn't really work with her, so she made do. She still beat everyone in the class in spars. Sharp nipping, teeth, and a penchant for thick skin meat. She could make anyone forfeit, not to mention her tail, which had thrown most of them out of the ring at some point. There was something disconcerting about being able to see 4 limbs. Then a 5th comes out of nowhere and hits you in the side and throws you a good 5 meters if she's being gentle. Sasuke actually growled at Taroko and she happily growled back. Sasuke stuck a leaf on his forehead again, growling at it when it flew off because he'd applied too much chakra. Taroko helpfully tapped out the problem. When angry, chakra is unstable, calm. Sasuke looked at Iruka for translation. She suggested you should calm down because when you're angry, your chakra is unstable. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at her, and she looked innocently back. Well, as innocently as a raptor can look. They had a Yuga take a look at her, and surely enough, she had fully formed chakra coils, almost like a summoning creature as such. Tarko insisted upon asking about things being thrown with chakra, which led to an entire discussion on magical ninjutsu, the control needed for that, and chakra strings, which could theoretically be used to throw kunais. By the end of the 6th year, she was up to his shoulder, could now throw kunai, and was working on learning the henji. Privately, Iruka thought that anyone they came across was doomed. He was also debating taking up registering Taroko as an actual shinobi. After all, Taroko, Shino, and Naruto would make a wonderful tracking team. Unlikely to happen though, as Iruka knew that Naruto was perfect for a frontline team. Just a bit more so than a tracking team though. As this is where I'm going to be leaving this part of, guys. I hope you like this one and let me know in the comments if you like this. And if you do, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And this is Apollo Uchiha and I'm signing out. Peace.